Rob Trotter. Four magic words to courage. Four magic words to courage. Rob Trotter.
Okay. Eeny, meeny, miny, go. I was 7 years old. I had just passed the guppy swim class at the local pool and was brimming with excitement. Not only would I get to join those older kids, the minnows, but as a result for passing the beginner swimming, I would get to jump off the high dive. All summer long, I would watch as the minnows and the eels and those really big kids, the sharks, would fly off that diving board. And I couldn't wait to become a part of the swimming social elite. My dad stood beside me in line while I was imagining how great I was going to be when I took my first jump as a big kid. He had other thoughts. Now, Robbie, it's just possible that when you get up there, you might get a little scared. You might even freeze. And you might think about backing down that ladder. If you experience that fear, pause for just a second. Take a breath and say, eeny, meeny, miny, go. And when you say go, jump. That's the rules to the four magic words to courage. You have to take action to go. It was my turn, and I couldn't waste another second. In one ear, out the other. I darted up that ladder, ran across that diving board, got to the edge, and froze. The world had suddenly become enormous to me. I now knew what a mile looked like because that was how far the water was. I lost control of my body. My heart was pounding. I was shaking, and I was so thankful I had just relieved myself in the kiddie pool a few minutes before. Everybody who had been swimming and playing previously had stopped and was staring at me. The people in the cars on the highway were craning their necks as they passed by, and I was aware of the passengers in the plane above as they stared at that tiny window, looking down at the little boy who had no business being on a big kid's diving board. I took a step back towards the ladder, and then I looked over at my father. The expression in his face said the loving and encouraging words he was thinking. You can do this, son. And he held 4 fingers in the air to remind me of the 4 magic words of courage he had just taught me. Not wanting to disappoint my dad, I stepped back at the edge of the ladder. I paused. I took a deep breath, and I said, eeny, meeny, miny, go! Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guest, how do you feel when you've overcome paralyzing fear? For me, taking the leap that day felt like walking on air. Then cool, like when a hot, dry body meets cold water. And finally, that blissfulness that only a little boy knows when he hears the words from his father, I'm proud of you, son. Now, I wish I could say I left the pool that day a changed person, one that spent the next 4 decades of my life facing my fears, overcoming enormous obstacles, never worried about what other people think. But that would be a lie. I spent the next years of my life fumbling facing my fears. Sometimes I'd get it right. A lot of times I get it wrong. And other times I just get lucky. And despite all that randomness, I do count myself as one of the fortunate ones. I feel like I'm living the American dream. I've got a beautiful wife, that house with the white picket fence, and 2.5 kids. But when I examine my past decisions closely, I can see that there are some specific moments when I let fear win. You see, fears in our life can be so debilitating that when we look back, what we see is a graveyard of missed opportunity. Like the time I didn't show up for a scheduled interview with the local police department because I let myself believe I wasn't good enough to be on the force. Or that family vacation I backed out of because of the fear of spending too much money. We were even going to get half off for that 0.5 kid. Oh, the parties I didn't attend. The people I shied away from, the learning opportunities I let pass by. All missed moments because I was too afraid to take a chance. Well, even the first job I ever got, I stayed up for more than 2 decades because of fear. It was at a movie theater, and while it was a great job for a high school kid, it wasn't the career I had envisioned for myself. But I was a hard worker, a natural leader, and those jerks, they just kept promoting me. until 23 years later, I find myself the leader of a megaplex movie theater, but working 70 hours a week, weekends, evenings, and holidays. And despite enjoying that job very much, I didn't stay there that long because I loved it. I stayed because I had convinced myself I couldn't do anything else. But after so many missed family moments, I found myself imagining leaving. I so wanted a job with normal hours, and maybe one where I didn't get yelled at for overpriced goobers by goobers. I'd even gone as far as writing my letter of resignation, but there it sat on my computer for days because sending it meant a life change I couldn't imagine. It was a moment of paralyzing fear. And while I sat there and read that letter, not planning on sending it again, I happened to glance over at the desk of a photo I had of me and my dad. In it, he's smiling and waving, with his thumb slightly bent, making it look like he's holding 4 fingers in the air. And I had a memory flash back to a little boy who was afraid to take a big leap in life and the 4 magic words to courage his father had shared with him. And in that moment, like the day in the pool, I paused. I took a breath. And I said, eeny, meeny, miny, go. Life change. That is when I consider my life went from ordinary to extraordinary. Now, it wasn't easy, but I did find that job I was looking for. And I've met people and had experiences I never would have dreamed for myself. What fears in your life are paralyzing you? What's keeping you from extraordinary experiences? If there is that thing in your life that is holding you back, then I invite you to remember the 4 magic words to courage a loving father once taught his little boy. And when faced with that fear, pause for just a moment. Breathe deep and take bold action after saying, eeny, meeny, miny, go. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Rob.